We've been talking to Dan Manginelli about his new book, Wake Up, Jumpstart the Life You've Always Had in Mind. But this book comes after being in the real estate and mortgage industry for about 24 years, and we're going to try to get a little perspective on what you think is going to happen next. I mean, we've been reading that here in Orange County, at least, it looks like the market is bottoming out.
You know, that'd be great. If we had a crystal ball, I'll tell you what, we wouldn't be writing books. We'd all be laying on the beach somewhere, being millionaires. You know, it's tough to say it's bottoming out, and I think the key of figuring out what market is bottoming out or what the change is, and how in the past, like in the early 90s, the foreclosures, and people say the market's cyclical, like it goes in a circle. I'm a firm believer the market moves on. It never comes back to where it was. So in Orange County, the way you kind of figure things out in the past, in the 90s, you went by notice of defaults. When notice of defaults, when people on the foreclosure sides were going down, then it meant obviously the market might be turning around a little bit. This time's different because notice of defaults in the third quarter of last year went up 220% from the year prior, but in the fourth quarter actually went down. And what happened was when the government put a moratorium on all the foreclosures, if you remember, they told Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and most banks, no more foreclosures. There's an election coming, and and we just don't want any more foreclosures. We don't want them on the books. Let's put a hold. Let's figure out how to refinance these people. Let's see if we can, redo their loans somehow. We can modify them in some cases. So they stopped them. And with doing that, it put a slowdown. So in the first quarter of this year, it looked like that it was tailing off. It was up a little bit, but it was down in the fourth quarter of last year. Well, what you're seeing now is they're starting to trickle back out. Now, so the notice of defaults isn't really fueling it anymore like it was.
So we sort of had an artificial floor there.
Kind
of slipping
completely
through.
Because because of unemployment, the aerospace industry in the mid-90s or so, when the foreclosures started happening then, that was a big issue because a lot of people lost their jobs. We're kind of double duty here a little bit in our economy now. The onion unpeeling of the real estate industry, when that subprime, as they called it, that onion unpeeled, is greed outweighed common sense for those type of loans. The greed of being that those loans were saleable on the secondary market for so much money that we were doing loans for, unfortunately, people with low FICO scores, with no money down, with no verification of income. I mean, if we went to some of these people and said, hey, would you give them $20? We'd say no, but banks were giving them $750,000, right? It was inevitable that would happen. Well, that trickle effect of the onion now took effect to the financial industries with the JPs and the Goldman Sachs. They were buying these loans, so now they have the losses on their books. The onion unpeels because now they can't afford their payment. So you put a moratorium, as they did on the foreclosures, and it's a false sense of security. So when they do let those go, unfortunately, unemployment still is not down. If unemployment was coming down, notice the defaults were coming down, and the adjustable rate mortgages stopped adjusting, you might see some rebounding. The median sales prices usually have to level. Well, they went down again in Orange County. They went down, 24% from $500,000 to $380,000, just the median sales price in Orange County. So that's still falling.
So what's going to be the real signal that things are turning around? I mean, you still hear cases where, people are starting to bid on houses. People are getting multiple bids on houses, and the values are actually higher than the asking price. Is that just an anomaly?
No, the crazy thing is sales are actually up. They are actually up 10% from where they were of April of last year. So sales have been increasing quarter after quarter after quarter. The problem with the sales, it's all fueled by foreclosures. Now, it is a tragedy that people are losing their homes. It's horrible to see what's happening in the United States right now, people losing their homes. The opportunity that lies is a lot of people now can invest in real estate or afford real estate, because it did get so high for so long that sales are now increasing. So you're right. Now in a foreclosure, you might see bids higher than the asking bid because it is $400,000 lower than it was 2 years ago in the same neighborhood. So that's what's fueling the market as far as the frenzy of buying. And in certain areas, maybe not in Orange County, but even in Orange County, investors are coming in the droves of saying, I know that the market will turn around at one point. This is a great deal. In Huntington Beach, it's a great deal. I'm going to buy this house because I know in 3 years it's going to be worth so much more. That's what's increasing the sales.
So much of the problem we have obviously was fueled by the real estate industry. Is a turnaround in the real estate industry going to be the sign that things are turning around, or has the economy have deeper problems?
I think it's going to have to be twofold. We're going to have to see people stop losing their jobs. The layoffs, in the United States is 9%. In California, it's over 11%. So we're hit a little bit harder, obviously, in California on, unemployment. You're going to have to see unemployment numbers, stable off a little bit. You're going to have to see sales prices stop dropping, with the median sales price quit going down. You're going to have to see that. And when that stabilizes, and when the government and all the banks start releasing these foreclosures and letting this dam that they put up, the tsunami that might happen afterwards, if they have to let those go to let the market actually get somewhere where it feels like it's on stable ground.
Let's bring your book back into it. You talked about the tragedy of foreclosure. Put yourself in a position of somebody who's losing their home.
Okay.
You know, and we in the United States put so much into the importance of home ownership. You know, how does somebody in that position, you know, looking at that, turn around their life?
It's definitely a tragedy. So if you're talking about internally towards an attitude, and there's, you know, again, I'm a big on weighing my options. So my options would be, if I'm now, my house is, I'm losing it to foreclosures, my options is to, you know, not leave and get the sheriffs throw me out, right? So that probably isn't too much of an option. Find a place to rent or figure out how I can try to stay in the house. And I think the toughest part for people is leaving, especially if some people that have been in their house for quite some time, is leaving their house. But you only have so many choices. And just focus on the choice that you make and just focus and push harder towards that. Because if you're going to have to rent a place, now you have to find a place to rent. And if your credit's going bad, it's going to be difficult on the other end. So knowing it's coming and knowing you're not going to be able to afford this house, realizing trying to work with the bank, if you can't modify the loan, go out and rent a place. Take your stuff and go out and find a place that's going to be suitable. And you're right, it's not a good feeling. Losing anything is not a good feeling. But it's rebuildable. It's just a house.
On one side, when you talk about being motivational, sometimes it's maybe having a rosier picture than you might normally have. But what I'm hearing from you is that part of what you need to do is be very realistic about the position you are in really in life.
I think that you have to be realistic. It's easy to motivate somebody. And when I speak to 200, 300 people at a time, let's say at a workshop or a seminar, I can get them all riled up. I'm not worried about that moment or that 3 hours I'm with them. My concern is the next 7 days, the next 2 weeks, 4 months, 360 some odd days. Those are the days I really want to be concerned about, because I can get anybody jacked up for a short period of time, but how you implement the things I'm talking about long term, and it all goes to the options you have.
Okay. We're going to be talking about how to put those little items into implementation right after this.